Welcome to another exciting session of the Business Horizon Talks that we're hosting on behalf of the UK Space Agency. My name is Asia Bulgarini and I'm an associate business consultant here at Great Consultants. I'm so pleased to welcome you all. So we have a selection of speakers that will present on a range of space infrastructures and facilities. The agenda for today is the following. I will go through the house rules. Then I will show a quick video outlining the UK Space Agency infrastructure strategy and policy. And then I will give the word to our panelists for their introduction and finally move on to the live Q&A. So this session is being recorded, so you'll be able to watch it again. If you would like subtitles, please enable them by clicking on live transcript and note that you can also change their size. If you need any technical assistance, you can chat to the tech support by clicking on the chat button. And also remember that you can ask questions to the panel throughout the whole event and especially during the live Q&A. So please do so by clicking on the Q&A box. So now Jake Novak, who is the lead space infrastructure road mapping at the UK Space Agency, has prepared a video for us. So here it is.
Hi everyone, I'm Jake Novak, part of the local growth team in the UK Space Agency, focused on delivering space sector growth across the UK through a range of interventions, decentralising innovation and looking at where space is relevant and can align with local ambitions. And as part of this, we're currently exploring how to support UK infrastructure development, as we know that open access infrastructure can provide an anchor for cluster development, provide opportunities for skills development and knowledge exchange, reduce barriers to entry, allowing adjacent sector companies to try their hand in space, and can enable smaller companies an easier route through the verification process. Currently, there's a number of landscape maps and databases highlighting existing infrastructure in the UK, but no single view of space infrastructure plans or desires that are emerging at both a local and national level, making it quite tricky to take a strategic approach to identify the interventions we should advocate. We're therefore in the process of engaging with a range of stakeholders to help us build this consolidated view of infrastructure opportunities and ambitions, supporting the government priority of ensuring UK access to resilient space capabilities. I'm already working with colleagues in the Base Space Directorate and UKRI. We've reached out to the sector with a question embedded in the Size and Health Survey for those willing to be directly involved in a wider stakeholder engagement process and have useful data sets highlighting some of the existing infrastructure plans, reported needs, and gap and competition analysis. To supplement these sources, though, we're planning engagement with the Department for Levelling Up, BAYS and DIT to understand the mature plans at a nationally significant level, as well as assessing the right weighting between future market needs against current requirements. Separately, we're looking at the locally significant through planned engagement with the LEPs and cluster development managers to understand some of the more speculative and grassroots proposals. Between these data sources, we're building an evidence base which can inform intervention priorities, and we're exploring how best to incentivize infrastructure plans. If you'd like to have a conversation, please do get in touch, and thanks very much.
And thank you, Jake. We really have a fantastic lineup of panelists today, and here's a quick overview of who they are. We have Sarah, Business Development Manager at STFC and RAL Space. We have Dan, Program Manager at the National Physical Laboratory. We have Martin, West Coast Area Manager at the Satellite Applications Catapult. And we have Rob, Head of the Earth Observation Services at Airbus. First, Sarah, please, can you tell us a bit about the space sector facilities that are managed at STFC?
Thank you, Asia. So the Science and Technology Facilities Council, we operate a whole range of different test facilities across a number of different capabilities. The picture you can see in the background here is of our Harwell campus. So on the left-hand side, you can see the Diamond Light Source, which is an X-ray synchrotron. Not really so relevant for space infrastructure, but it gives you an idea of the kind of facilities we get involved with. When it comes to space, we operate a whole range of different testing capabilities for the whole development cycle for space, spacecraft, instruments, and component development. The one of the biggest things that we've been working on recently, and in response to requests from industry and working with the UK Space Agency, is the National Satellite Test Facility. So this is in the final phases of construction right now. And the whole premise of the building has been developed, as I say, in response to that need from industry to have one location for testing of spacecraft in the UK. Until now, we haven't been able to do that. Our large spacecraft have had to go overseas to be tested. And as soon as we're able to open this facility, we'll then be able to test large spacecraft up to 7 tons within this facility, and take them through the whole suite of testing required for pre-launch. So through vibration and acoustic testing, the thermal vacuum cycling, but then also the electromagnetic compatibility and antenna testing, which is so important for being able to get that data back to Earth from the spacecraft that had been launched. This is at the large end of the scale for the capabilities that we have. Our vacuum chamber capabilities go from this very large one of 7-meter diameter all the way down to a 1-meter diameter, which we have all sorts of SMEs and universities coming to use for component development, even small instrument development in there as well. But we also then operate a range of clean rooms that allow people to come and use those. So rather than having to build their own space and maintain their own spaces for cleanliness, we're able to provide that access to both academic and industry partners. Depending on their requirements, we can work that out. Excuse me. So alongside this, with the satellite and spacecraft activities, we've also been supporting the UK Space Agency with their brand new propulsion test facility. So this is based up at Westcott, and I will leave it to Martin to tell you more about the other things going on at Westcott. But this particular facility has again been in response to an industry need for vacuum testing for in-space thrusters. So this is designed for chemical thrusters up to 1500 newtons. That's a big thruster for a spacecraft. But these are the ones that are used for interplanetary orbit changes, deceleration around a planet. You really need to be confident that your thruster is going to work when you need it to. And this facility will allow us to test those in the UK with fully instrumented systems and a dedicated test team that is going to be operated by NAMO. So the last thing I just want to mention is that we also maintain, on behalf of the Space Agency, a space test facilities website. So as Jake mentioned in his video, there are various ways to be able to look at what's out there. So this is one of them, where we list the various capabilities that are available across the country. So both academic, commercial, and then spacecraft, but also propulsion testing capabilities are all listed here. And we can help connect you up with people for the different requirements that you might have. But I will leave it there and then hand back to Asia.
Thank you, Sarah. That's great. Let's hear from Martin now, who's going to talk a bit about, in more detail, about the wider infrastructure available at Westcott.
Great, thanks very much, Asia, and fantastic follow from Sarah there. And you can already see the connectedness, between ourselves as we look at the national picture. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, I'm Martin, and I'm here at Westcott, and I'm delighted to say a little bit more about what happens here. So let's just see if we can get on to our next slide then. So for those that don't know, Westcott is halfway between Aylesbury and Bicester, just located around here. It's not too far from London, so pretty easy to get to. So it's pretty good. And then looking at the next slide, this gives you a better feel for what Westcott is. So much like many other locations around the UK, there were lots of old military infrastructure. Westcott used to be the home of the rocketry propulsion establishment. Everyone's familiar with the story of the German scientists going to the US and Soviet Union but some came here to the UK as well. And this is where they developed over the 40s, 50s and 60s, the UK's expertise in rocketry propulsion. And of course, we saw Black Arrow and such back in the day. Now, myself, right now, I'm in the Westcott Innovation Centre. That's where I'm talking to you from today. And I'm smack bang in the middle of Westcott Venture Park. So when we say Westcott, it means different things to different people. So let me try and clear that up briefly. So Westcott itself, the totality of it is a big business park, 650 acres, and it's got lots of different tenants on there, FedEx, EcoPack, and lots of others. But clearly, space is at the heart of it. So we at the Catapult here at Westcott are part of the Westcott Space Cluster, a really fantastic grouping of space-related businesses. And we've got companies like European Astrotech, who specialize in the propellants and the chemicals, Airborne Engineering, I'll talk to a bit more in a minute, and NAMO as well, who've been involved in these interplanetary class engines for spacecraft. And we specifically at the Catapult, we're developing a part of Westcott called the Enterprise Zone. We're developing Westcott Space Innovation Business Park. And that's largely what I'm going to talk to you about today. So when you hear Westcott, typically we'll talk about the cluster, but there's also specific interventions that organizations like the Catapult are making. Hopefully that's cleared that up. So as I say, there's an amazing history, and just to give you a feel for it really quickly, you had things like the Thunderbird surface-to-air missile developed in the 50s and 60s. In the top right, you've got a big K1 stand, 50 meters tall, and that was part of the UK's missile testing in the 70s. But at the bottom right, turn the dial way back, that's Seasite, and that's where the original German scientists worked at Westcott. And I'm showing this because actually, we now are recommissioning a lot of these facilities. So it's really, really exciting. And just this morning, I was with another company that's taken on a lease, and you'll see some more exciting announcements to come, but really making sure we make the best of our heritage. I'm not going to talk about NSPTF because Sarah's covered it, but that is physically here at Westcott too. But something we haven't spoken about is perhaps a little lesser known capability, which is one of the other members of Westcott Space Cluster. So Airborne Engineering is a fantastic company. James McFarlane's leading them up. And they have a great capability called GIROC, funded with GSTP funding from the European Space Agency. And what you can see here is their VTBL platform. Pretty innovative, and I think I'm right in saying the only one currently in Europe. NASA has a similar capability under the Morpheus program, but this is another example of the niche capabilities available here at Westcott. And I know Airborne are really collaborative and open to working with people. So whether you're testing payloads like LiDAR sensors for scouting debris in your landing site, this is what GIROC's intended to do, and that's the kind of capability we have here, as well as traditional chemical propulsion testing. All right, so as I say, you've got the venture park, you've got the space cluster. Now let's talk a little bit more about the Catapult, and that's the organization that I'm part of, the Satellite Applications Catapult. So for those of you that have a phone ready, as long as my face isn't in the way, that QR code should take you to the Westcott Strategic Vision. Do have a snap of it. It's a really good document, and it outlines how we see Westcott developing over the next 10 years. And I know there's a Q&A later on, but hopefully that should scratch some of your itches. So it is a vision. Clearly, it's not an exact blueprint, but it should give you an idea of how we see Westcott developing in the enterprise zone, and I'd commend it to you. Okay, so let's get a bit more specific now. So in the middle is the building that I'm in, and I don't know if you can see my cursor, but I'm probably round about there. There you go, in the electronics lab upstairs. That's our innovation center. Really large flexible engineering space at the rear in 3 zones. We also have our incubation center on the bottom left, and then on the bottom right is our future networks development center. So this is the core at the moment of Westcott Space Innovation Business Park. And the great thing about it is these are highly flexible facilities, and we make them available on a pay-as-you-go basis. But we also do supported occupancy. So if you've got a business that's growing a little bit, you need a bit more space, but you maybe you're not quite confident to take on a lease yourself, you come talk to us. You can take up an occupancy with the Satellite Applications Catapult, really friendly, and we'll try and help you scale, because the Catapult here at Westcott is acting as a catalyst to grow Westcott Space Cluster. I'm pretty sure most people on the call know what a Catapult is, but we're all about enabling and supporting. We're not here to compete with industry, and that's what we're adding to Westcott. So let me keep moving because I've only got another few minutes left. This is the SAYS Incubation Center, just a really high quality office space. And we can talk perhaps more in the Q&A about what support we provide. Our Future Network Development Center, really nationally important, a lot of unique capabilities like Ofcom 5G test licenses. We're also working really closely with OneWeb on things like position navigation and timing. So we've got our antenna farm. I'm pointing, doesn't mean anything to you. The antenna farm's over in that direction. But that's where we're helping OneWeb characterize the performance of their constellation, and OneWeb also have a service demonstration center in our Westcott Innovation Center, which is where you can see their little logo up there. So OneWeb will often host organizations they want to work with, because as you know, they do business to business rather than Skylink, which is more business to consumer. We also have in here our Healthy Living Lab. So as much as space is sort of quite associated with rockets and things, we very much look at the real economy and how we improve healthcare outcomes. So that's here as well. Well, what I'll do is I'm just going to quickly flick through some of the things that we have. I'm not going to talk about them. If you want to know more, give me a shout in the Q&A and we can get you some product data sheets. But this is the kind of capability that we have right now today inside Westcott Innovation Center. And I would just point out the Metal Fab 1 metal printer. That's a pretty rare piece of machinery. As far as we know, there's only one in Germany and another one in the US. So if you need capability like that, give us a shout. We can also help with your measurement and inspection. And these are all on pay-as-you-go basis. You know, we make it as affordable as we can. And that's what we have in the Innovation Center. Now, just very briefly, before I run out of time, brand new Building 4000. So the catapult's taken on a lease on 2/3 of this building. So on the right-hand side, you can see that. And in here, we're going to have the capabilities you can see. So space manufacturing, in-orbit service and manufacturing in our living labs. Let's dig into that really briefly. So this is the kind of output you can get from SMPT. This is the build plate that you put in Metal Fab 1. And I believe this is Inconel 718, which is the alloy that's being used. So this is the kind of stuff you can do with us. We'll make it for you as cheaply as we can. We're also developing in-orbit service and manufacture. So there's analogous facilities that the German Space Agency have. We're modeling it on EPOS, so it'll look quite familiar for those of you that have used that. But this is going to be available in the summer for you to use, again, on pay-as-you-go basis in Building 4000. I briefly mentioned the living labs. Again, not all about the upstream, I guess. We're very much focusing on ensuring that downstream gets benefit. So we've got a health and an agricultural value stream at the catapult. And my talented colleagues make sure that we show practitioners in those sectors how they can get the best from space data and space technology. Okay, so winding up, again, phones that are ready for QR codes. The history is genuinely fascinating. This session is a little bit looking forward, but do snap that QR code on the left if you want to know a little bit more about Westcott. And then on the right-hand side, again, is that Westcott strategic vision. And, you know, if you do want to get in touch, I've tried to make it pretty easy there. Get the phone out, snap the QR code. That'll be a straight email to our reception. If you don't do QR codes, you can manually put it in there, and you'll find us on all the usual social platforms. So a huge canter through, very fast, lots going on. But you know what? Westcott is a really busy place, and there's lots going on here. So if you want to know more, please give me a shout, and that's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Really fascinating capabilities at Westcott. So now we'll hear from Dan from the National Physical Laboratory. So yeah, the floor is yours, Dan.
Hi everyone, I appreciate the chance to be here in this forum. I'm going brave today, so I'm not doing any slides, so I'll have to keep you interested by voice. So National Physical Laboratory is relatively active in space, but maybe not as well recognized as some of the other institutions here. So we are part of BAIS, a government-owned company with a National Metrology Institute for the UK. So we develop and maintain primary measurement standards. So we provide measurement science underpinning R&D. So that's the kind of corporate bit. But in more practical terms, we have about 1,000 people, 100 million turnover, and well over 300 labs that are across industry, primarily based in Teddington, Southwest London. And then we have smaller capabilities in the north of England and in Scotland. So really, we have two assets. One is a huge amount of expertise that sits in our 600 plus science staff. And that's across all measurement domains. So whether that's timing for P&T to do a space, or material characterization, or radiation measurement, or dimensional measurement, we have extremely broad capability. That's one asset. The other asset is a huge number of facilities. So these are not, as specific to space as perhaps the one that Sarah put at RAL Space as an example. But we have things like antenna calibration test ranges. We have precision radiometric measurement facilities. So really, the way this comes together in our space work, I'll give you two examples of kind of what we do and also how we work together with industry. So one example is the Truths mission, which Rob, from Airbus is going to be well aware of. So this is a a mission that the UK is a key part of, and the original concept was developed by one of the scientists at MPL. So this was based on decades of work on radiometric measurements, basically measuring properties of light. We're very good at that, but we don't develop space hardware. So over time, that developed into a space mission concept called Truth, which is let's get a reference in space that will provide a source of confidence, effectively a calibration observatory in the sky in space. So MPL works together with companies like Airbus, giving the measurement expertise that allows the underpinning measurement. So that's an example of us giving our expertise. Different example in terms of facilities. The main program I work on at the moment is called the National Timing Centre. So that's a £36 million 5-year investment from the UK that we're doing together with some government partners and Innovate UK. So as part of that, we're establishing some core capability that's a bit more under the covers. However, the external bit is that we're developing a number of innovation nodes, which we'll announcing in a few weeks' time, mostly working with universities to establish places where industry can go and access accurate timing signals. So related to space, we have mechanisms as part of the program as well. So we gave £2 million of grant funding via Innovate UK. That was across a lot of sectors, but a number of really interesting space companies bid into that because PNT, position, navigation, timing, is quite a key area, developing area in space in the UK at the moment. So companies like Spire up in Glasgow, Lacuna Space in the Harwell campus, ARKit looking at timing for quantum developments. So these are companies that bid in and are sort of in adjacent, are needing adjacent capability and timing to enable their development of space applications. So it's sort of probably a good microcosm of how MPL works with industry to do with space. So we have a lot of Earth observation activity. We do a lot in clocks and quantum, and then we have a lot of general sport technologies. So to give you a couple of practical examples in terms of funding, so how can companies actually get money to work together with MPL? So we have a few mechanisms. Usually we will bid into government together with others, or we will establish funding streams. So one example is A4I, analysis for innovators, which SDFC is part of, where companies can get funding to develop technologies to solve problems where they need key expertise that places like MPL, SDFC have experts who can help them solve these problems. So you can access funding via that. So if you search for A4I, analysis for innovators, you'll find references to that. Another example I partly mentioned is via Innovate UK. We have a call coming up in just a couple of months' time, which is going to be specifically around timing, frequency, and synchronization. So again, we're really interested in space companies accessing that. So that gives them access to facilities at these innovation nodes we're setting up, and at MPL, it gives access to expertise and allows people to innovate and push their products forward. So hopefully that gives you just a bit of an overview of MPL, how we work with industry, and ways that you might be able to access some funding. And if any questions, I'm happy offline to be contacted or during this Q&A. So back to you, Asia. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's great. Great insights into MPL. So thank you, Dan. And now let's hear from Rob. So please, can you give us an overview of the infrastructure available at Airbus?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Rob Fletcher. I'm the Head of Earth Observation Services within Intelligence UK at Airbus Defence and Space. And today I'm going to give you a brief overview of some of our satellite data and ground segment services. Within Airbus, Intelligence has a global footprint of around 2,000 customers in 167 countries. Within the UK, we are a team of around 150 people in 4 sites. And we have over 30 years experience in data acquisition, processing, analysis, and hosting of satellite data. We build solutions for many sectors, including space agencies, defence, security, finance, insurance, and energy. And we operate UK-based Earth observation assets in Vision 1, Novasar, and the DMC satellite constellations. We're a leader in handling complex geospatial data and challenges. Our goals are really to deliver value from our data and to empower our customers to make decisions and solve real-world problems by using our data and facilities. Three of the key business areas for intelligence in the UK are data, systems and services. And through the data services, we provide easy access to our satellite imagery. So that's both long-term archive imagery and newly acquired imagery. We provide data processing and hosting and payload data groundment services as well. Through our systems, we can provide platforms for data sharing and collaboration. We create bespoke applications for services such as emergency response, and we have off-the-shelf data analytics platforms for use cases such as change detection, AI, machine learning, and temporal analysis. And other services that we offer regularly are secure mapping. We can provide 24/7 operations, planning, and data as a service. Airbus Intelligence has an unrivaled operation constellation of satellites. We have a wide range of within our optical constellation, offering imagery from medium resolution right through to very high resolution in Pleiades Neo, which is a native 30-centimeter resolution. We also have a wide-ranging radar constellation. And as an organization of innovation, we're always planning our next future constellations as well. But as today's webinar is concentrating on UK assets, I'd give you a brief overview on the DMC constellation, our Vision 1 very high resolution satellite, and Novasar, which is a synthetic aperture radar satellite. But before we do that, I thought you may be interested in seeing this image. This is a typical native 30-centimeter resolution image from the Pleiades Neo constellation. And as you can see, you can pick out amazing detail and information from imagery like this. If you were to zoom in a bit further, you can count the people. You can always count the people in the open-top buses. It's very impressive. Our UK Earth observation assets include the DMC constellation, which has been operating since around 2003. It's a medium resolution constellation that provides a 20 to 24 meter image product. Has a very wide swath of 640 kilometers, which enables us to image a very large area in one pass, and it's regularly used for both full country and continent monitoring, especially in agricultural and use cases. It's a fully UK coordinated constellation. We provide details of imagery from DMC for the UK Space Agency and the International Disaster Charter, where we provide accurate and up-to-date geographic information, which helps improve disaster response times, provide reliable information for risk and damage assessments, and improve decision support, which is crucial within disaster management. This image shows wildfires over Chile, I think on the coast of Chile. Vision 1 is a UK sovereign very high resolution satellite built by Surrey Satellites in Guildford. It's got a 0.87 meter image product resolution, and through our UK intelligence teams, we provide near real-time downloads, processing and delivery of the data. And it's fully operated within our UK secure operations and data centers. This is an example image from Vision 1 over Abu Dhabi. Again, you can see it's an extremely clear and detailed image that we could use to potentially count boats in the harbour or monitor the building work that's happening in the centre of the bottom of the image there. Novasar's another UK sovereign space asset, again built by Surrey Satellites. It's a synthetic aperture radar satellite, and it was launched with Vision 1, which gives us a unique capability that what we call orbit phased, in that one tracks the other. So we can capture both optical and SAR imagery over an area of interest within the same time frame, and then merge the two data sets together. The radar data might not look quite as pleasing to the eye as some of the optical data you've just seen, but in areas of very high cloud cover, it comes into its own, as it has the ability to penetrate through the cloud and pick out the information beneath. There's the UK payload data ground segment is operated in the UK. There's a government allocation of data, which is the tasking of that is managed by the Satellite Applications Catapult on behalf of the UK Space Agency. This is an example image from Novasar. It's over Singapore at 20 meters resolution. Again, if we were to zoom in, as we show in the left-hand image, you can start picking out images of the ships that are entering and leaving the harbours. And Novasar is used a lot for maritime monitoring use cases. And Novasar also featured recently on the BBC News with this amazing mosaic over the whole of the UK and Ireland that was captured within only 7 passes with the Novasar satellite. Moving on quickly to our UK satellite operations. We operate payload data ground segment services from our office in Guildford. And we've task collected, processed and disseminated satellite data for over 15 years. This has been for both our own satellite constellations as well as working with third-party operators. And we deliver image data to end users, including many national institutions that do and have included the UK Space Agency, the International Chartered Disaster, government agencies such as DEFRA, European space agencies, and then international institutions such as the United States Department of Agriculture. Through our ground segment services, we provide a full end-to-end automated data production line from the tasking through to dissemination of the data. So within the tasking phase, as a customer, we receive, or a customer would send us a tasking request, so provide an area of interest and a time frame that they'd like it imaged in. We assess the feasibility of the request by integrating satellite tasking and tracking information with weather data to look for the weather forecast for things such as percentage of cloud cover in the area at the desired time to see if optical imagery is possible. We provide the best options for capture and then set the satellite tasking instructions. The satellite images the area and downloads the data to a ground station, which could be either in the UK or elsewhere globally, where we then carry out quality checks on the data before transferring it into our processing chain, where within we can create, apply several different types of correction to the data or rectifications depending on the use case and the requirement. And then we can also push the data through exploitation platforms for common use cases such as flood monitoring or deforestation or change detection, ship detection, before finally saving the data within our secure data centers, within our long-term archives for future use, as well as delivering the data back out to the end user. So I hope you found that brief tour of our data acts and ground segment services very interesting. And if you'd like to find out more information, then please feel free to reach out to myself or our imagery support team, and we'd welcome the opportunity to talk to you about it in more detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. That was indeed very, very interesting. Now, for all attendees, ask away your questions because we're going to do the live Q&A now. So you can click on the Q&A button and you can also vote the questions that you would like to be asked first. And yeah, you can also, like, as I said, like them and vote them. Some of the questions have already been submitted, so I will now field the questions from the participants. And panelists, if you would like to answer any questions, just raise your hand. So the one that I would like to ask first is, the thermal vacuum facility being installed in the Zephyr building will be really useful for companies looking to test hardware and experiment rather than at a satellite platform level. Does Sarah have any further updates on this? So, for example, timescales and costs.
Unfortunately, the short answer is no. So the Zephyr building is on the Harwell campus, but it's outside of STFC facilities. And I don't have any details on that particular facility and where it's going, but I can look into that. What I can say, though, is that we internally to STFC, we do have smaller chambers as well. So not quite that size. We've got our smaller ones go from 0.5 meter diameter to 1.2 meter diameter, and from 0.5 meter to 1.5 meter long. So we've got some that are kind of roughly equivalent to that 1.5 meter cube size. And yes, absolutely, testing components and development hardware is really important to be able to validate what you're doing.
Thanks, Sarah. Next one is, what additional facilities and infrastructure would be required to support the UK space industry? So, Martin, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, thanks very much, Asia. So what additional, goodness me, well, something that I've been thinking about quite a bit, and I've been having a chat with colleagues, is we cover off the ground bit quite well: space manufacturing, propulsion and test, making stuff on Earth for space, and that's pretty well understood. The middle part of it, and this is a question about in-orbit servicing manufacturing, is of course making stuff in space, either for use back on Earth or for use in space. So the missing piece of the puzzle, I think, and obviously I've got a bit of a Westcott-centric bias, but in situ resource utilization is something that I know it kind of gets a bit dismissed as, sci-fi, but we're already seeing quite credible organizations developing propositions around in-orbit servicing, in situ resource utilization, or ISRU. And so I know there are some academic facilities. The Open University has one, Milton Keynes, very small, sort of, I think it's 2x1 meter. But when you look at perhaps the US, which is obviously a different order of magnitude, they have their Swampwork facility there by the Kennedy Space Center. They have large chambers for helping companies develop robotics and tools and procedures for taking resources where they find them outside of Earth and making products from them. So, for example, the lunar regolith, the surface of the moon, making structures, extracting helium, finding water ice, taking oxygen, hydrogen, and of course there's the asteroid thing of platinum group metals and that kind of stuff. So, something I'm looking at is an ISRU issue facility, probably quite expensive, for a small company that's got maybe a good idea. So I'm looking at whether there's a need to provide that. And, here at Westcott, we've got plenty of real estate. And so if ISRU is something you think could be of interest, then please feel free to give me a shout, because at the moment, we're very much in the thinking phase. But clearly, the more demand we feel there is, the stronger the case for it.
Thanks, Martin. So now, how can we access imagery from Airbus? Are there any free data sets? And what order of magnitude are we talking about for imagery missions? So, Rob, please.
Hi, yeah, I answered Alan offline, actually, just saying if he asked if he could email me directly, and I'll put him through to the right people on the order of magnitude question, because I'm not sure, wouldn't like to say off the top of my head. Free imagery, the Novasar imagery can be obtained free of charge if you're a UK government user via the satellite applications catapult. The rest of it really depends on use case. Again, be happy to, if anybody's interested, then please contact me directly and I'll put you through to the relevant people. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Rob. Now, are there funding opportunities and initiatives to help the UK businesses access or establish their own infrastructure to deliver their products and services? So, Dan, would you like to take this one?
Sure. So the question is specifically asked about infrastructure. There's obviously a lot of funding for, let's say, projects. If you're looking at defense, there's DASA, Defense and Security Accelerator, as an example. For other things, UKSA is involved in huge number of different streams that people can access. In terms of, let's say, infrastructure, if you know a bit about, especially some of the smaller space companies in the UK, there's always a pattern where often you get a small little company, they get established, and they usually hang off of other infrastructure. So they'll hang off, you look at early days of SSTL, they were based at Stirling University, and that allows you to scale really quickly without having to spend a lot of money. Other companies will access, maybe piggyback onto the capability of another company. So there are examples, I won't mention names, but in Glasgow, some companies who came in very early on and then would use a different company to build their hardware initially. They would get bigger and then they can invest in their own. I would say in terms of infrastructure, probably the best bet is trying to locate yourself regionally and access, the things that are in place, whether that's, local authorities, or if I give the example of Scotland, which is where I'm based, there's lots of government money that is really, really trying to incentivize companies to be located there, and therefore there are government pots of money, but also you look at the clusters and the parks, and Westcott, a great example. they're incredibly open to people coming in and renting a part of a lab, or renting a capability of some sort. So I think there are lots of ways that without spending a ton of money, you can access expertise and facilities that as you start growing, you might want to go somewhere else, or you might want to take a larger thing. But I think trying to reduce the barriers to entry, I think space is not as scary quite as it looks, and because there is so much investment that's already been done, it's really, I would, people use the clusters, use the government funding that's there, and the really, a lot of willingness from other companies to help you out as well.
Thank you, Dan. Now one question that is also related to a webinar that we'll be hosting sometime, like they will be hosting in the future. So, so in what ways should we be considering the environment when establishing infrastructure for the space sector? So maybe Sarah would like to answer this one.
Sure. So I think no matter what we're doing, we need to be considering the environmental impact of the results and minimizing that as far as possible. One example I can give you of that right now is with the propulsion test facility at Westcott. So the big opportunity that presents, as I mentioned, is a vacuum system. Now, vacuum systems themselves require typically a lot of energy. You've got to suck a lot of air out. It's basically a huge compressor. There are different ways to be able to do that. And the method that we've selected for this facility actually uses electric pumps that are far more efficient to be able to drive that vacuum. The compromise there is that you have to cool the gases. So to do that, we're using a lot of water, but we're then recycling all of that water. So net impact is substantially lower than it might otherwise have been if we'd used a more traditional steam-based system, both in terms of energy and also water usage at that point. So where possible with these new infrastructures, we really do need to consider the wider and longer term impacts of the environmental effects. Absolutely.
Thanks, Sarah. What are the opportunities for international, so EU and non-ESA startups in the UK, and what are the barriers of their entry to watch out for? Anyone would like to take this, or should I ask Martin if you'd like to answer?
Goodness me, you're putting me on the spot there, Asia. Let's see what we can think about this. So I think one of the challenges is, let's be clear, a lot of these facilities are funded by public funds in the UK. So there's a reasonable expectation that it's going to benefit the UK economically, socially somehow. But that being said, the great thing about the UK is we've always been a very open country, and we've always been open to taking the brightest and best from around the world and helping them succeed. So certainly I can say that I've got some time, I'm not going to name any names, but we've had quite a few companies come to Westcott who are not based in the UK. And you know what? We work with them, we look at ownership structures, we speak with our partners at things like local enterprise partnerships. And, more often than not, we'll find a solution. And, as you'd expect, there's an element of what commitment would that company make to the UK? Because clearly it can be very transactional, right? There's a pay-per-use element to a lot of facilities. If a company's based overseas and they just want to come and use that because it's niche, then of course we're going to help them, because ultimately space sector is global. But we are very much international outward looking, and we're very much here to support, the UK's place as global Britain. So as always, it's usually worth a conversation over a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, but more often than not, we can definitely help still. Absolutely.
Great. I think Sarah wanted to add something. So.
Yeah, I was just going to add that we have various business incubation centres available, which is another route to be able to support this. So at Harwell, we have an ESA business incubation centre. We have another, SGFC has another hosts two other ESA BICs, one in the northwest at our Daresbury lab and another in Edinburgh. But then the Satellite Applications Casper also has one at Westcott as well. So there is some kind of specific mechanisms that can support companies depending on what they want to do. But I completely echo Martin's comments in terms of that commitment to the UK is the big part of it.
Great, thanks. are there any equivalent satellite test facilities to the Harwell Westcott campus, but in Wales? So particularly for microsatellites, they ask. Sarah, please. Thank you.
So the short answer right now is no. There aren't many. There aren't many test facilities like the ones we have at Harwell anywhere in the UK. And really what we've been trying to support at Harwell is that real open access capability and to be able to kind of be a centralized point where anybody can come to then use those facilities because of the level of investment that's required to be able to set them up in the first place, but then also the expertise that's required to then operate them reliably so that the customers know what they're getting going forward. Smaller facilities, we are developing some up at our Daresbury laboratory, which is Warrington way, so not exactly Wales. And we have other capabilities in Scotland at our Edinburgh facility, but not in Wales at the moment. I would say though, Jake at the beginning was talking about the kind of pulling together the ideas of what's required where. So that would be might be something to follow up on.
Great, thanks. Now, are there optical testing facilities available in STFC or Westcott for startups that are developing payloads and other relevant technology? Sarah?
So yes, so at Harwell we have a range of optical capabilities. We also work with NPL in terms of some of the capabilities they have to be able to enhance that. But we as RAL Space build a lot of optical components and instruments. So we have several clean rooms that are set up to deal with optical requirements. We have some that are set up to be ISO 5 clean that then allow for that. And we also operate in a way that minimizes or excludes the use of certain materials because of the compatibility requirements for optical components.
Okay, thanks. So I see one that might be directed to Martin, because is what kind of facilities will the IOSM Center provide?
Oh, thanks, Asia, and thanks for the question. So just as a reminder for everyone, IOSM is in-orbit servicing and manufacturing. And of course, there's an inherent challenge in that we're all existing at 1G at the moment. And typically, of course, where the stuff is, it's in microgravity. So all we can really do in many cases is analogs. And one of the key parts of our new IOSM facility here at Westcott is we're providing that rendezvous and proximity operations simulator. So that's based around very, very large room in the warehouse, very tall, very big. We create a simulated space scene so that the sensors and trackers can be calibrated. We also have one robot on a rail, one fixed at the end, and that allows companies to test things like the algorithms, the attitude orbital control systems, and the other components one would need if they're going to successfully do rendezvous and proximity operations. In that building itself, though, we will have other bits of kit. So we'll have automated fiber placement that will be in there as well. So that's something that was getting a little bit more interest. But the main heart of the IOSM facility is this simulator. So if you really want to get into detail, we're using robots from KUKA. That's KUKA. So if you Google them, you'll see them in lots of space-related facilities. So really high-end stuff. And I also want to make a big shout out to the team because we've got real national level experts there. So if you want to know more, give me a shout and we'll connect you with Professor Jez. He's our robotics lead and he certainly knows his stuff. So we not only have the hardware, we have the people as well. Because of course, great thing about being on facility is, okay, so you put the machinery in place, but if you don't have people that know how it works, it's not much use. So that's a key thing that Catapult brings as well. It's the smart people that know how these things work.
And Martin, I think we have another one for you, because someone is saying, I've noticed that you have a project for new clean rooms. Have you made your choice yet? And what are your requirements for ISO 7 and ISO 5?
Goodness me, I don't know if we have, and perhaps there's been a misunderstanding, I don't know if we have a project for new clean rooms per se. We do have portable clean rooms here at Westcott. So we have the inflatable clean rooms to a higher ISO standard. And we also have the lower ISO clean rooms that, you know, if you don't need to have that kind of cleanliness. So what we'll do is I'll double check. I think the details are on one of our websites, the Innovation Center, but we'll put them up there. And again, these things can be booked on a pay-per-use basis. We can move them as well. You know, the inflatable ones pack down really small. So yeah, just to be clear, I don't think we have a new project in clean rooms, but we have some that can be used here at Westcott if you need.
Great, thank you. Next one is for Dan, because they ask if the National Physical Laboratory partners on project where we can access their facilities.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of our key strategic ways that we work with that we deliver impact is via collaborative R&D. Now, the question about how to partner, that's probably a good one. So we do that by accessing pots of money with other people. So I gave the Truths example. So obviously there's a UK SA funding that comes, so that's what allows us to work with companies like Airbus. Interesting enough, actually, a company like RAL Space, STFC, because we actually effectively access different pots of money, it's actually often hard for us to work together and do projects together, even though we have complementary capability, but often the funding is the issue. But for, let's say, smaller businesses, I outlined some of the programs that we are part of, like this A4I or the Innovate projects that we've got coming up on timing. So those are mechanisms where it's not necessarily us bidding together with a company, but it's a mechanism that has us built into it, as it were. But we're always open to discussing with people. Because of our size, quite often we sort of work really well with large companies, but we also work well with small companies. Like I said, a lot of the expertise we provide will just be you need a real temperature expert for some specific problem. So, come talk to us, find a way that you can access, because you might not need that person very much. It's not necessarily a massive project, but it enables you to do something. So, yeah, I would basically say some generic answers, but please, be in touch anytime. I think it's common to all of us. I think the space industry kind of thrives on networking and really to get involved, especially, for something like there that maybe isn't familiar so much with the space industry. It is very friendly, and within a few networking events, honestly, you can probably meet the 50 or 100 people that end up going to all these sort of things. It's a bit of a small world. And so you just have to get out there, talk to people, ask silly questions, and you can sort of start slowly getting to, the support that you need.
Thanks, Dan. So next one is, how does the new Leicester Space Park tie in with what has been said today? And and also with Harwell or the catapult? Does anyone like to? Martin, go ahead.
Sarah, do you want to go first, or do you want me to jump on in? So clearly fantastic new Space Park Leicester, very exciting what's been done up there, and very, very cool. From a catapult perspective, we have a space commercialization engine at Space Park Leicester, led by Nick Trigg. So Nick, if you're listening, how do? Shout out to you. And the space commercialization engine is very much about providing companies with business support to take an idea. We heard from Rob earlier on about the fantastic capabilities that companies like Airbus have, but that's not enough. You've got to have an actual business proposition. You've got to have a user need that needs solved. And so the space commercialization engine connects people with the imagery that companies like Rob's have, but with actually what's your marketing plan, what's your financial plan, how are you going to go to market. So there is very much the ability there to have a nascent idea, and then to have the specialist people and knowledge to take that forward, much like in all of our respective clusters. It's really about the people as well, because we've been quite hardware or machinery centric in our chat, but as I alluded to, you've got to have the right people. So very, very cool things at Space Park Leicester.
Thanks, Martin. The next one, so they say there seems to be some discussion on this. Are there any plans to improve public transport links to Harwell and Westcott?
So I think Harwell is a lot better today than it was even 5 years ago with public transport links. There are some dedicated bus services now, both from Didcot and Oxford. So I think we're pretty accessible. I don't know what Martin might say about Westcott. I think that might be a little bit behind us in terms of catching up.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, whenever I talk to folk, there's a bit of a rough comparison, which is Westcott's maybe a few years behind Harwell in terms of maturity of the campus, but trust me, we're catching up pretty quickly. You're absolutely right. I mean, The public transport, I think it's fair to say, could be a bit better for Westcott, but we are in constant dialogue with the County Council, with local enterprise partnerships, but also around things like green modes of transportation. We're talking about extending the cycleway from Aylesbury Parkway. There's already a cycleway that comes all the way from the Parkway to the beautiful Waddesdon Manor and Park, and it's just a short bit that you need to go to get to Westcott Venture Park. So it's something we are looking at, and whilst not strictly public transport, we are making sure there's plenty of EV vehicle charging points. I noted the very cool driverless bus, Sarah, you have at Harwell, your big yellow autonomous bus. So I have mentioned to the Venture Park that wouldn't it be nice if we had something as well, because we have plenty of room to test it here. So we'll try and increase the offer that we have for sure. We know it's an issue.
Thanks, Martin and Tara. So we only have time for one last question, which is, what are the future sensors and instruments that will be deployed in space? Rob, would you like to take this one?
Sure, I'll have a go. I guess some optical sensors, we'll probably be talking higher resolution and more regular revisit times, so more regular monitoring. I think with Earth observation and the drive for net zero and the focus on climate change, there'll be more air monitoring, climate monitoring applications and sensors and thermal monitoring. Obviously, we've got the worry about space safety, and so probably be sensors looking at space debris and monitoring space debris more accurately. And obviously, then we've got communications through faster broadband and internet access to the world through services such as OneWeb. Yeah, I think that's probably the way we'll go.
Thanks, Rob. So it's been amazing. Thank you all so much. And this brings us to the end of this module. So we'll do our best to answer the questions that we didn't answer live, and please give some feedback and join the quick poll that it's available at the bottom of the page. And there are 3 more sessions left. The next one is on finding space talent. So sign up today. The link, the banner should come up in a second. The link is going to be on our channels as well. And thank you all so much for joining today. And we really can't wait to see you at the next session. Thank you again to all the panelists.